All right. So our agenda for today, that was a very long-winded welcome, but we're going to hop into a quick PowerPoint presentation. We actually have two folks with us who are going to be helping us out, kind of talking about census in their areas and how things are going with that. From there, we're going to then kind of have a bit of a roundtable effort, just discussing your census efforts in your community, what you guys have been doing, what have been working, what's not been working, particularly with everything that's happening with the current pandemic, and then a bit of a brainstorming session on increasing census participation. Okay, so this is the GoToWebinar attendee view. Give me 1 second here. And as you can see here, this is what you should be seeing on your audio. The right-hand side, that's obviously the viewer. The left-hand side, the left-hand side is the viewer. The right-hand side shows all your audio participation here. So our next one here. So participating in the webinar. If you see the orange arrow here, it's highlighted in the box. You can use that to open and close your panel as such. And then you can select and test your audio, which hopefully everyone has done. We suggest using a telephone over a computer just to prevent feedback. The audio pin, which you see here, you should definitely enter that in order to be able to type in or be able to call in or speak in. Right now, most everyone is muted, but we will unmute folks for questions. And you can always write them in the question pane if you want to ask a question and are not on the computer or not able to speak on the computer or through audio. If you have any questions, obviously feel free to raise your hand in the icon that you see right there, and everyone will be receiving an email within 24 hours with a link to a survey about today's session. Our recorded webinar will be made available on our NCAI YouTube page, which you see there below, and we're trying to also make sure that it's also on our Indian Country Counts page as well. We're trying to update that as much as we can, not only with these all these webinars, but also with the latest and greatest on the news for the census. So with that, I'll just hop in real quick. For those who've been on these, you may have already seen this, but I'm going to just go ahead and read this to you again, just for those who don't know. The National Congress of American Indians was founded in 1944 and is the oldest, largest, and most representative American Indian Alaska Native organization serving the broad interests of tribal governments and communities. And Indian Country Counts is NCAI's initiative to encourage all American Indians and Alaska Natives to complete the 2020 census. What is civic engagement? Well, for those who don't know, civic engagement means working to make a difference in the civic life of one's community and developing the combination of knowledge, skills, values, and motivation to make that difference. It means promoting the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes. Now, we all know the importance of the census. For those who don't know or need a refresher, the census is a powerful information source that significantly influences U.S. policy. It is the foundation of American democracy, determining the allocation of congressional seats and redistricting in voting geographies. Nearly $1 billion in annual federal resources is allocated to Indian country based on census data. Now, nationally, the Census Bureau estimates that American Indians and Alaska Natives living on reservations or in native villages were undercounted by approximately 4.9% in the 2010 census, more than double the undercount rate of the next closest population group. And so, of course, NCAI's goal here, and everybody I know on this call's goal here, is to bring that number down to zero or as close as possible. So the census is here. Now what? So mailings actually started going out, inviting everybody starting around March 12th. I know for myself, I've seen at least 3 mailers so far because I took a little time to fill out my census form. And you can fill out the census form, online, over the phone, or by mail. Now's the time to be shifting from educating your community on the census to preparing them to fill out the form. And the self-response timeframe has been extended. The new timeframe is now between March 12th and August 14th. So initially, and as you can see on the right-hand side here, this is an up-to-date census operations adjustments due to the COVID-19 outbreak. And this may be, ever-changing because census, their field operations were supposed to start up mid-March, and now those have been suspended now till April 15th and potentially longer. As you can see on the update leave and update enumerate, this information is actually out of date, but Census hasn't sent any updated information as of yet. And so at least their updated leave and updated enumeration is not going to get started until closer to April 15th is the earliest. This outbreak has definitely thrown a lot of us for a loop here, including the Census Bureau, but we're trying our best to make sure that it is that we're still able to answer this in this time. So on the screen here, for those who are on there, this is from the Census Bureau's official statement on the coronavirus and the 2020 census. And I'm not going to read everything verbatim, but I will read the last line that's in bold there, which says, "It has never been easier to respond on your own, whether online, over the phone, or by mail, all without having to meet a census taker." So this is what we're really pushing in this time frame. And I know you folks have been doing the same in your communities, is really pushing that folks need to fill out their form over the phone, online, or by mail, so that they don't have to worry about somebody coming and knocking on the door, which at this point isn't going to happen till April 15th at the earliest. And that's, again, field operations, that was, they initially had a 2-week suspension, but then after that, they ended up extending it another 2 weeks after that. And we would encourage you to please check out NCAI has its own COVID-19 website. If you go to our NCAI.org page, it's right there on the front. You can click on that. It gives you the most up-to-date information on COVID-19, not just census related, but everything as it relates to COVID-19 and Indian country. And so we have been working really hard to make sure that everyone is up to date with what is happening, from the stimulus package to everything that's been going on there. So I would push you to that resource for any and all information on COVID-19. Excuse me. Now, as I mentioned, the Census Bureau is delaying the start of their mobile questionnaire assistance program. That's going to start on April 15th at the earliest. It was initially planned to start on March 30th. And then the early non-response follow-up. As you see here, this information is actually, it said it was going to start on April 9th, but we know that's not probably going to happen until April 15th at the earliest, because again, the information just came out earlier this week saying that they have delayed all field operations, and that includes folks dropping off paper forms and going and knocking on doors till at least April 15th, the earliest. And next slide here. So this was the most, at the top here is the most recent statement that came from Census as it relates to their field operations, that they've suspended it an additional 2 weeks to April 15th. And they're still assessing things as we go. And I know that this is probably really difficult, especially for those living in areas where it is an update leave is the way that they're getting their first contract. And actually, I should go to the next slide here in just a second to explain that. But just remember, folks, that there is a number of ways that you can go online and over the phone to respond to your census. You don't have to limit yourself to getting a paper form in the mail. And I know that sometimes that's the way things have been done in the past, but now there are other avenues on which you can apply or reply to the census. So this is a map of Oklahoma and obviously a little bit of Texas in there as well. And I made sure to put on the highlight here to show where the tribal areas are as well. So depending on where you live, and we're using Oklahoma here, what color your county or your reservation is going to determine how you will be receiving your contact from the Census Bureau. If you're in the purple areas, you will be receiving a mailer that is inviting you to apply online, just online. If you're in the green areas, you're receiving both an invitation to apply online, or as well as a paper form. Now, if you're living in the yellow areas, that's the update, that's the hand-delivered packet, or the update leave, which, as I just mentioned, is now suspended till at least April 15th, the earliest. The census obviously is taking this outbreak very seriously, as is everybody, and they do not want to risk the health of anyone or their workers trying to send them out to drop off these forms, which I know obviously can put a real delay on folks responding back because they're unable to respond either due to a lack of internet or a lack of phone coverage. If you notice on the bottom here, there is a map. This is the hard to count areas that actually does give you, not only is it tracking the current response rates for the 2020 census, but it also shows a breakdown of initial contacts and comparison to 2010 information as well. So the online response portal, this right here on the right-hand side is a picture of what the invitation it looks like, and it's expected that most people will, most of the population will use the online response form to fill out the census. And the first mailing, it has this invitation, which includes a census ID, which is a 12-digit code. Now you can fill out the census form online without this ID code. There's an option, and we'll show you in a second how that works. Now, I know this can pose a challenge for some AIN communities due to a lack of access to internet, but it's not the only way that you can fill out your census form. As I've mentioned probably a couple times now, you can also do it over the phone, or you can fill out a census form on paper and then send it in the mail. Now, unfortunately, there is no option right now to print something off at home, for example. There's no form that's available to download and print off at home, or pick up another place. Unfortunately, the Census Bureau are the ones that will be hand delivering or sending those in the mail, those paper forms. Now we're going to go to the Internet Self-Response landing page. Sandra, would you like to jump on here and see if I can unmute you? And that way you should be able to jump on.
Sounds great, Matt. Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay?
No problem. I can hear you. That's perfect.
Fantastic. So as Matt mentioned, one of the ways that we're encouraging folks, if you haven't done so already, is to fill out the Internet Self-Response. So you go online and you're going to be filling this out over the Internet. You're going to notice this page will come up first. It's going to welcome you to the 2020 census. It's going to remind you of all the things that we've already spoken about, which is that it's quick and easy, and it is very quick. A lot of Facebook posts of folks that have been sharing their confirmation pages and entering our online prize challenges for filling out their census have responded that way and said it's really fast, really easy. Just reminding folks that it's safe and secure and confidential, and of course directing everyone to remember that it directly affects billions of dollars in federal funds to local communities for schools, roads, and other public services. Getting started, you're going to complete your questionnaire, and once you begin, we would just want to remind folks that when you do it online, it won't allow you to return later, so you need to finish it in one sitting. So try not to use your web browser back buttons or those kinds of things so that it doesn't close out on you. For best results, you want to use the latest version of Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, or Safari, and then enable your cookies on your Internet. So in logging in, Matt already mentioned this about the 12-digit census ID code. You're going to receive that in your invitation. But if you don't have that code, you'll notice underneath the login button, you can click on that link below, and it'll guide and direct you on how to complete the census. For address verification, this was a question that kept coming up for a lot of folks, and especially just watching social media. This was something that people were reminding folks about. If you're completing the 2020 census questionnaire for your address, it's going to ask you to first confirm that, so that's a yes or no based on the address that pops up. Then it's going to ask you in terms of those that are maybe without a usual residence, and then it's going to have a description below. It's going to ask you to please confirm or describe the physical location in the space provided below. So the city, state, and zip code in which you will be residing on April 1st. It's going to give you an example where you can actually put a description in. So in that box below, you can put something like brick house with screen porch on the northeast corner, a farm road, a park, street intersection, or shelter. You can list that there.
And real quick, I'll just jump in. For those you might know, people who are experiencing homelessness, the Census Bureau's operation to count those folks has also been delayed. They were planning to do it right around April 1st, but that has been delayed with the field operation suspension as well. So April 15th is likely the first opportunity that they will get to count those experiencing homelessness.
Thank you, Matt. And then the number of people at your residence, it's going to ask you to include that number. This is where we've been doing a large campaign about all kids count and pushing out that messaging. We want to make sure that you know that everyone in your home anybody that will be living or staying with you at that address on April 1st, definitely please count in your residence on your application. We're going to talk about college students later because many of you have college students that have returned home from their universities and they might have been staying in dorms. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Name and telephone number, you'll see there listing your name and telephone number. They're only going to contact you if they need to do any kind of follow-up to the census, and as it relates to they're not going to share your telephone number with anyone else. Home ownership question, you're going to see this where they're going to ask you a few questions about whether or not this is owned by you or someone in the household that has an existing mortgage or loan, owned by you or someone in the household that's free and clear, so without a mortgage or loan, whether it's rented or occupied without payment of rent. So then you'll have, these are actually two separate questions. They're, for sake of the PowerPoint, we'll put them on the same page. Sex and date of birth questions, so male or female, and then your date of birth confirmation and your age as of April 1st. Hispanic origin question, so you'll note there that there's a lot of different options here for Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. You can click no, or when you click yes, it gives you and provides options for you to fill in. It provides several that are already filled in for you, like Mexican, Mexican-American, Chicano, Puerto Rican, Cuban, or another Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. And then it also provides a box for you to put an example if you wanted to put something else like Dominican or Colombian. So race question, this is where you have all the different boxes that you can check, as we had mentioned on previous webinars and in our toolkit, checking American Indian or Alaska Native. You can also identify your tribal affiliation. There's a box over that you'll note over to the right that has the different options that you can put in. So tribal affiliation, our guidance has been to put the one that your principal tribe that you're enrolled with or that is listed on the Federal Register, and then you can put up to several others within there as well. Before clicking submit, we just want to make sure that you've gone through your responses, because once you submit, you won't be able to access those. To complete your questionnaire, you're just going to hit submit questionnaire. And then it'll bring you to your final confirmation page. For those of you guys that are participating in a lot of the different census challenges out there, one way, like for example, I noticed Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe did a raffle with their tribe, and what they were asking people to do is they could send a snapshot digitally to someone with their confirmation page to show that they had filled out the census, and they entered them into a raffle. And they had, I think, like 79 entries they just did prizes for yesterday. So that was pretty cool. They're keeping pretty good count and track day to day for their entries. But you could take a snapshot of this or print it off if you have a printer, especially if you want to join in some of those challenges.
All right, thank you, Sandra. Oh. Okay. It said they're experiencing an audio conference, so hopefully folks can hear me still. I'm just going to continue on forward in the meantime, because it looks like I don't have the ability to mute anybody, but I'll just be going from there. Okay, so on to our next slide here. Oh, good. Connections were restored. Wonderful. Okay, so the mailing. So as I mentioned before, there's a number of different mailings that are going to be going out. They're going to continue. Census Bureau is going to continue to be sending out reminder letters and postcards throughout the self-response time frame should you not respond. And as I mentioned, I think I received about 3 before I had officially responded, just because I was busy doing other things and didn't get a chance to do it till the weekend. So depending on your location, you may receive a paper form in your first invite for the responses, and all households will be sent a paper form if they do not respond by early April. And on the right-hand side here, this is one of the last kind of reminder postcards that was sent. The initial time frame was that by April 30th If you had not self-responded, that's when folks would start, census takers would start coming out and kind of reaching out in that door-to-door process. But since that's been delayed, and they've also extended the time frame for the self-response, you do have more time to respond either online, by mail, or over the phone. These next slide just has photos of some of the other mailers that folks have received. The one on the left hand is another reminder postcard that was coming around the end of March, and then on the right hand side here is this one will come with the paper form if you hadn't responded online or over the phone or by paper by the beginning of April. So the updated timeline, as I mentioned before, these dates are subject to change, as it says there at the bottom. And this poster here is a little outdated in terms of its information. But as of right now, from what we know, because of the paused field operations, that updated leave, basically where they're leaving packets for folks in updated enumeration, everything's really been suspended until April 15th. So anything you see on here that starts before April, that's supposed to be starting, on March 29th, for example, the updated leave, that has been pushed back till April 15th. I'm not sure of the revised end of this schedule because the Census Bureau has not released another sort of one-pager poster like this to kind of explain what they're doing with their updated information. We have been trying to be in constant contact and being on top of everything that they're working on to make sure that we know what the most up-to-date information is. But this is what we know right now, that all field operations are suspended until April 15th. So unfortunately for those living in areas where they would be hand-delivered packets as opposed to getting it in the mail, that unfortunately has been suspended. But that doesn't mean that the census you're not able to do the census. As I mentioned, there's always the phone and online options. And I know internet may not be the easiest thing to get a hold of, but I feel like most people have a phone of some, or at least know of a place where they can get a phone. And so the information is on there to call, to apply to the census over the phone as well as online. Now is actually going to be one of our first speakers, Jaisha Lyons Eckelhart. She works out in Oklahoma for the Oklahoma Policy Institute. Jaisha, do you have audio? According to my thing here, it shows that she is, did I say Eckelhart? I meant Eckelhawk, excuse me. I don't know why Eckelhart came to mind. I see you on, Jaisha. Hopefully, yes, Sandra
can you
saying
hear
to me, yes, I can, Jaisha. All right, wonderful. I'll stop talking now.
Yeah.
Stop butchering your name. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, Jaisha, take it away. Just tell me to hit next when you'd like me to, and I'll move to the next slide.
For sure. Noa akitaru tatasati tatachik stadiku. Hello, my name is Jaisha Lyons Eckelhawk. I am the Census Community Builder from Oklahoma Policy Institute, and I'm also a tribal member of the Seminole Nation, as well as a descendant of the Pawnee, Creek, Omaha, and Iowa tribes. I'm based here in Pawnee, Oklahoma. Just like everybody else, we are sheltering in place. And so it's been interesting navigating our census outreach. The events that we had lined up, we've quickly had to retool and rethink what it might look like, and also be mindful of what our relatives might be going through. If you're not aware, a lot of our tribal communities have had to shut down many of their economic development, their casinos, tourism, rightfully so, given the pandemic, but that means that a lot of people are without jobs. And so, we, definitely want to continue pushing at the census, but we're also trying to be patient with communities that we were coordinating with ahead of the recent events. With that said, that's just my information if you want to follow up with me at a later time, because we're always looking to engage with partners, in particular to the Oklahoma region. Our organization is a statewide organization, so we're not specific to tribal communities necessarily. Yeah, that's a little bit. But we are focused on the census work in communities that are most undercounted, and as you all know, that is our native tribes. We have 39 tribal jurisdictions in Oklahoma, and the last conversation I had with some of our tribal partnership specialists with the Census Bureau, I think only, oh my goodness, I think less than 20 had complete count committees. So I was making an active effort to connect with those tribes, in particular in the southeast region, because those are the communities Oklahoma has had the lowest response rates regarding the census survey. It also is the area where there is a lot of, or not a lot of internet connectivity. So that's still something that we're trying to navigate in doing our outreach work digitally, is to make sure that we're still trying to find ways to be creative in getting that information of the census, not just, what it is, but the need to do it, and finding ways to get people to still do it while practicing social distancing and while being mindful that they might not be able to complete it online. Excuse me. So I will say that this Friday, we are hosting on our Together Oklahoma Facebook page. The Oklahoma Policy Institute is the overarching organization, and there are different campaigns that roll out the different work that we do that are issue specific. And I apologize, I didn't include a slide for Together Oklahoma, but you can find that information about Together Oklahoma, togetheroklahoma.org, or you can go to the okpolicy.org page and it's linked. But Together Oklahoma is the grassroots advocacy or education piece for our work at Oklahoma Policy Institute. And we focus on basically activating our community, doing the outreach regarding the issues that come up. We focus on education, healthcare, criminal justice reform, our state's budget and tax in Oklahoma, and the census has everything to do with all those issues. So that's why we took on this census work, especially because Oklahoma did not fund, at the state level, they did not fund census engagement. So it's been put upon our state's Department of Commerce, working with different, thank you for sharing that, different partner organizations, as well as different municipality leadership and tribal leadership. So that's kind of where Oklahoma Policy Institute falls in within the state's or census efforts. We have had generous funding for us to pursue the census work throughout the state. Again, we're looking at communities that are hardest, regionally specific, hardest to, or what they're known as hardest to count, or the most undercounted, and that is Southeast Oklahoma and Northwest Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, there are no tribal jurisdictions. That would be our panhandle. If you've ever seen the shape of our state, we're like a pot, and the handle part, there are no tribal communities or tribal jurisdiction, although there is one casino way out in Guyman, Oklahoma. And so we've had kind of some difficulty reaching into that community there. But we want to make sure that everybody's counted. Everybody will be adversely impacted if we have an undercount. And so as I was mentioning, this Friday, we are going to do a live event that will kind of be something that we've never done at our organization before, and hopefully will be a continuation going on to the next Friday, like following Fridays, as long as we see this unforeseeable, future of being shuttered in or sheltering in place. So this first Friday, we are going to hold what we're calling a virtual coffee, which is myself moderating amongst some of the community organizations that we've been able to provide a stipend for their census work. One of them includes Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference, who is working on the urban native count in Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And I also invited one of the tribal representation that I've been working with, Choctaw Nation. I believe Bradley Jernon is he's in the marketing department for Choctaw Nation, and they had initially an amazing census outreach plan, and I was so impressed, and we have connected to them to figure out at the time how to support their work. But thank you for pulling that up. So we'll have a couple of our partners at that event tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. And then later on in the day, we're going to have a Zumba hour with a woman named Tasha Chevis, who's based at Oklahoma State University at 5 p.m. And then we will follow that up with a live DJ set by MC1 and a live art set with Bunky Echohawk. So they'll be on at the same time. And then I'll also be moderating conversation there too. I mean, just providing some census-related information, encouraging folks to participate in the census, to complete their survey if they haven't. And we'll introduce at that time a census meme contest that we're going to carry out for those Fridays. The census meme, we feel, is a good way to engage the community. I mean, I'm sure y'all are very aware Indian Country has the best memes. And so we wanted to kind of incorporate the idea of the humor in memes, but also how it brings so much attention and awareness to particular topics if you can cater it appropriately. So we're going to hold a contest at each of these events, or at the evening events, so that we can engage folks, but also award a prize as we can. We are also going to do another type of contest, well, not contest, but engagement with the community, where they can like, share, and repost, and you enter. Basically, each time you do something, like if you like, that's an entry. If you repost, that's an entry. If you share, you tag somebody, that's an entry towards giveaways that will continue to hold during this time. And again, we're all in this together, trying to navigate and share ideas about best practices. And so I'm open to anybody, wanting to collaborate or has an idea. Feel free to share our event. We're definitely going to debrief following this event to see, what worked, what didn't work. And hopefully, we can also continue to support our local, for us, our local artists, our local entertainers, as they're impacted by being, at home and not able to travel and do their work. So with that, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I'll just say that sounds really cool. I'm excited to see what all the memes look like, that's for sure. Feel free, folks, to write in your questions in the question pane or in the chat. If we don't see any, we'll jump to the next one. And obviously, Jason, if you want to hang on for a little while, just in case any questions come up, we'll be happy to do that. Let me put the screen back on I'm seeing a question. Can you provide your contact information, Jaisha?
Yes, so my email is JLECHO-HAWK@okpolicy.org. So that's okpolicy.org. And then I'll go ahead and give you my phone number as well. My phone number is 405-780-0044.
And Jaysha, do you have the ability to put that in the chat, or if not, I might have to ask you to repeat yourself just real quick.
Yeah, it's so weird because like I think I'm on the back end of this webinar, so like
okay.
Yeah, we're good.
It's looking weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Any other questions? Anything else that folks might need? Okay. Well, folks, as you saw, I went onto the website where she was talking to bring up that coffee and census talk. So that information that you see on your screen is the most recent information, and I put in the chat box as well the Together OK website, as well as the Facebook invite and just about everything that you might need in there. So with that, I'm going to now throw it over. Let's see, bring it back to our. All right, here we go. So now I'm going to throw it to Brian Barlow. Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Brian, go ahead and take it away. And again, just let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
Will do. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Fiona God, Brian Barlow, Dawato, Tal Janelle, Tosco Heska, Wadatiud, Gijalagi. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Barlow. I'm from Talc, Oklahoma. I'm 25 years old. I work for the Native American Support Center at Northeastern State University, and I am Cherokee from Oklahoma. Next slide.
Sure.
So Northeastern State University is a 4-year public institution, state institution in the state of Oklahoma. We're located in Tahlequah, which is the heart of the Cherokee Nation, and we have roughly about ranges between 30 and 40% of our students self-identify as Native American. So we do a lot of work to try and engage our students civically, and one of those things is the census. So we began our census efforts, trying to get involved in the spring semester. And so throughout late January and early February, we were applying for NCAI's Community Assistance Grant. So we completed that grant proposal in February and submitted it to NCAI. And it was in early March that we received notification from NCAI, from Matt and Sandra and their team, that we would be awarded the grant. Our institution is pretty serious about grants, so it took a little bit of time for the internal paperwork to be completed. So by the time that the school had finished the paperwork, we were on spring break, and it was mid-March. And before we knew it, COVID-19 had become a concern for the campus and for the health and safety of our students. So like everyone else in the world, just like Jaysha said, everything kind of took a big change, took a big turn. So our spring break came to a close on March 22nd on a Sunday. And so on March 23rd, Monday morning, we found ourselves trying to adapt all of our programming and figure out how we were going to continue serving students, supporting students, and making sure that our students have what they need in this difficult time. Because although the campus is closed and there's only about 50 students living in the dorms right now, like Matt said, most of our students returned home. And so we're figuring out how we can support them in their coursework, which is now taking place online. How can we make sure they have the resources they need? How can we answer their questions when we can't see them in person? So that's when we had to adapt, adjust, and just continue moving forward. One of the things my boss likes to say to me and my coworkers, as well as our students, is the only constant in life is change. So we, kind of have that in mind in the work we're doing, and that, life is change happens, and we just have to do our best to go with the flow and to adapt and collaborate with those we can partner with. So the plan prior to the outbreak was to have campus tabling throughout last week, this week, and next week, when we were going to be distributing information to students, having swag items, and trying to encourage them to not only complete the census themselves, but talk to their family, talk to their community about the importance of census, really just getting that information out. So now that we can't gather in person, we obviously can't. There's no one on campus. It's completely empty. There's really not a lot of opportunities for tabling and distributing information in that way. But, like Jaysha is saying, with the work that Oklahoma Policy Institute is doing, as well as NCAI and organizations across the country, we're trying to move the distribution of information to the internet. The information is a very competitive place to get your information to the top of someone's news feed or on their Snapchat or wherever it is that you want them to get that information. So, we obviously want to incentivize that sharing of information like Jace was talking about, encouraging people to like things, share things, comment. So we're developing a plan to roll out some social media challenges for people to participate in. I really like Jace's meme competition idea, thinking about calling her and seeing if we can steal that idea, or maybe there's a way we can collaborate with her on it. But we are trying to really kind of brainstorm with our students, pick their brains a little bit about what could get them and their peers, but not only their peers, their families and their communities engaged with the census, and what kind of prizes could incentivize it. Does that mean a basket of cleaning items or a basket of food or something like that? Unfortunately, just due to university policies, even though it's NCAI money, we can't purchase a gift card or anything like that under the university's rules. So we do have to get kind of creative with what these prizes will look like. The other piece of our plan prior to the outbreak was advertising, just getting it out via radio, social media, print, etc. Some of these things we're still able to do, while some of them we can't. When we're talking about advertising, we can't, posters on campus really aren't going to do much. We were going to purchase buttons and T-shirts for a large event we were having. We're still trying to figure out if there's a way we can, still use buttons and T-shirts. Maybe they're parts of the basket, but that kind of stuff, seems a little less potent or accessible at this time. So what we are trying to do is, again, kind of focus that advertising on social media. Part of our grant proposal was the development of a promotional video that was going to feature our students. We have a student come on and say, "My name is so-and-so, I'm this tribe, and I count," or talk about why the count is important. And we're going to make a set of videos to distribute online. We'd still like to do that, and we still have that contract with that local Native-owned promotion company. But we're trying to see how we might be able to do that using Zoom on students' laptops rather than having them gather on a site for us to take footage. Can we have them take those videos from home and then we edit them and distribute the video that way? We're also looking at, is there a way for us to have students phone in to the radio station to give an interview or to promote, because they do community interviews on our local radio station. Is there a way for us to do that from a distance? So we're really trying to research how we can continue those advertising efforts. The final piece of our plan for census advocacy was we have a civic engagement event each semester. In the fall of 2018, we had a panel discussion with Native candidates, and Jaysha was actually one of our candidates who spoke on the panel. In the spring of 2019, we had a workshop on missing and murdered Indigenous women and how they and self-defense skills that they could learn. And then in the fall of 2019, we had a panel event with Native American veterans. And so this fall, our plan was to partner our water panel with census advocacy. We were going to dedicate 2 hours prior to the panel solely to distributing information, getting people out, getting them to understand the importance of the census. But obviously, with the recent developments, we can't hold a big event like that. So we're trying to figure out, what way, the funding we were going to utilize during that 2 hour time span to, get people to come in and to learn about the census. How can we repurpose those funds? And one of the ideas that my boss actually had was if we can purchase Wi-Fi hotspots to be able to take out to folks who live in rural areas where they might not have internet access. Like Matt mentioned, the internet, completing the census online is a super convenient and accessible means to complete the census. So how can we utilize that platform to help families complete the census? And so that's when we came up with the idea to purchase these Wi-Fi hotspots so we could take them out to a family. They could utilize it to complete the census. And that's a way we can, directly help a family to get that census completed. A lot of our families are going to live in rural areas that don't have traditional internet access. And so this is a means for us to bridge that gap. So that's the work we've been doing to try and transition in this difficult time to still get the census completed and to encourage people to participate. So if anyone has any questions, I think Matt said you can drop them in the chat box, and I'm happy to answer the best I can.
Well, Brian, thank you. I appreciate that, and I think that the hotspots thing is actually a pretty smart way to kind of get around the fact that they may not be as accessible of internet in maybe in some of these more rural areas. So that's really a great pivot, I would say, because I'm sure that Water is Life event would have really had a large draw, but as we all know, the gatherings are basically near impossible today. I mean, unless it's like a gathering of 2 or 3 people, which is obviously not going to get that message too far. But yes, folks, please write it in either in the chat or in your questions pane. I'm not seeing any questions, and I know we had a little bit of a slow start because my computer was giving me weird messages, and I thought nobody could hear me. So just if you go ahead and write it in, that's fine. But I'm going to continue to move on. Thank you again, Brian, and obviously, please, if you can stay on with us, that'd be great. And we do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, and I'll be here.
All right, fantastic. Okay, well, speaking of college students, this actually goes perfectly into our next slide here, which is a question basically about how college students are going to be counted, because up until this pandemic, most students who were attending colleges were living at or near the universities. And actually, this is a great little poster that Students Learn, Students Vote created, and we borrowed it from them on the left-hand side here. That kind of gives you a little bit of a flow chart as to how people are supposed to be counted. So students that live on campus in university housing would traditionally be counted at the campus. If your student was, commuting from home or from someplace else to the school, then they would have to be counted in that location. Now, obviously, most universities have now shut down and everybody is back in their homes. However, they are still supposed to be counted at their location or where they were supposed to be on April 1st. So if you have a son or a daughter, niece or nephew or somebody like that who, was away at college but is now back home because of the outbreak, they are going to be counted at their, if they were living on a dormitory or a fraternity or sorority that is owned by the university, then the university actually is the ones the administrators would be the ones doing the count for them, so they don't have to do anything, and you wouldn't include them in your count in your home. Now, if the student was living in off-campus housing, something that's not owned by the university, they would need to fill out their census form that would go to that address, and you wouldn't want to fill them out living in your house or in your home today, because they normally would not be there. So that's the reason why. So basically, the big takeaway for anyone is that any college student who obviously is home right now due to the outbreak, they are supposed to be counted where they were living or where they would have been living on April 1st. Again, if they were commuting from their home, that's fine. You would still count them in that home. But if they're living on campus, whether in a dorm or in an off-campus apartment or something like that, a fraternity or sorority, they are supposed to be counted there. And that is and if they are not living on campus housing or university-owned campus housing, it's on them to fill out their form on their own. You can't do it for them. Next, another question is about incarcerated American Indians. So any incarcerated person, including juveniles, is counted where they are currently incarcerated. Doesn't matter where they were from originally. That is where they count it. Now, depending on the facility, the prison administration or the prisoners themselves are responsible for filling out the census form. However, with the COVID-19 outbreak, the Census Bureau has really been, a lot of prisons have been trying to lock themselves down to prevent that spread, especially with these close quarters and these prisoners. So it's fallen more on the prison administrators to ensure that they take the necessary precautions to have a safe and accurate count. Now, I should note that some states have passed laws requiring prisoners to be counted at their home addresses when drawing their local legislative districts. However, the Census Bureau is not going to assist on any recalculation for those states, and those laws do not apply to federal congressional districts as well. So tracking the response rate, Census has actually done a great job this year of creating a map that is available as you see at the website below. And I'll read it off in just a second. It really gives a glimpse as to what the response rate is around the country. There is a bit of a lag because obviously you're getting it from multiple sources, not just online only. But it is a great way to see how your area is responding. The map's been updated, was initially just only had 2010 information, as you can see in the picture here, but it is now updated with the most current information for 2020. it's a great way to motivate your community and keep track of them. I know I'm a big college football fan, so right now I took a look just before. It looks like the states of Minnesota and Wisconsin are kind of in the lead or are tied for the lead and the greatest response rate. And I know, at least in college football, the University of Minnesota and the University of Wisconsin are old rivals. So I think, playing up that rivalry is a great way to obviously get your counts up. And you can drill down into your counties, your cities, your congressional districts, and even tribal areas, although the tribal areas are only going to be federally recognized reservations. And unfortunately, when you go and you hover on those, a lot of them have very low response rates at this point, not because these folks are not trying to answer the questions. It's more that a lot of them are reliant on that update leave, which unfortunately is on pause right now. But just for those who may not be on the are only on the phone and can't see this, the website, it's https://2020census.gov/response-rates.html. So the time for talk is over, and now is the time for action. With the self-response time already begun, think of ways that you can lead by example to show others how your community, how easy it is to fill out the census form. And you don't have to have an official role to be a great ally or advocate in your community. You know your people best in your community, and you can be great liaisons with the Census Bureau, especially in these times where, there's really not a lot of in-person meetings. So, being that, talking to them on the phone, making them aware of, if there's a large elderly community in this part of the town, or, there's a large homeless population that resonates in this park or something like that. You can be a great help in that sense. Now, unlike elections, which really only occur on one day, the self-response time frame is now it's more than 2 months at this point. It now goes, till August, so that's nearly 4 or 5 months at that point. So you can really don't have to limit yourself on how many times you're talking about census, and encouraging folks to fill out your community. Creating plans with those in your community who may have difficulty filling out the census form can be a great way to assist them. And, again, we're encouraging folks to call, text, and email to encourage your community to complete your census. Even if it's something as simple as, hey, you're calling up a family member just to check on them, just think, hey, by the way, did you do your census? You should do that. You can do it over the phone. It's super easy. I just did it. It's only 9 questions. It's very quick and simple, and I promise you that it is very quick and simple. Now, we, as Brian actually mentioned, Indian Country Counts offered 2 rounds of census mini grants, where tribal nations could apply for funds to help assist in their 2020 census efforts. Now, we saw a pretty common theme through most of the grantees as well as applicants about, having their efforts focus on bringing the community together and extending outreach through merchandise and social media to really kind of raise awareness and engagement. Now, tribal nations that had applied or have applied and, been awarded, they used them to buy merchandise, with their either the Indian Country Counts or census logos to advertise in their communities. They bought supplies for their census and recurring community events, which I know are obviously on hold, and that's been a real change in trying to figure out how to use those funds in different ways, and also creating informational handouts and ads for distribution online and in person. So below is actually a couple examples, and actually the next slide is going to have some more. As you see on the left here, this is the chairperson of the Yakima tribe and his I Am Yakima and I Count. Next, we have one of our tribes whose his name always escapes me. I apologize. But they created their own. They used their funds to create their own census logos. As you see, it says Native Pride with the black feather and then Native Counted. The next is the Menominee tribe, which is out of New York. They created obviously their own I Am Menominee and I Count shirts. Finally, you have the Pueblo of San Felipe, which created their own kind of swag with the notepads and the lanyards there. And they used it to 2020 census, like I count, you count, and then in their native language, they count, basically. The next slide here shows some more that we've gotten in to the Swinomish tribe of Washington. They actually created yard signs. The Yucachang in New York created, obviously, you see the bags and the shirt as well. The Kalamath in Oregon used their funds to put up a large billboard, which is definitely great, especially in this time where, people are kind of going to be driving. That's the way to get out these days. the United Nation in Wisconsin, not the one in New York, they got shirts that they say "I am and I count," as you can see here. The middle photo here is from the Northern Arapaho in Wyoming. This was an event that happened obviously prior to the shutdown. And as you can see, they've got, I'm thinking it's a powwow, not 100%. I didn't get that information, but as you see, they're holding up the census banner right there. And then finally, the Washoe tribe out in Nevada and California, they created these stickers that says "I am Washoe and I count." So these are just some examples. Great way to really get the word out. And as Brian mentioned, really thinking outside the box to, get people, with the hotspots, I would say is a great way as well. Now, this next slide, as you see here, this is actually something that NCAI has done with their Native Youth Challenge. So NCAI announced that basically a social media challenge that, for Native youth under the age of 25, and we want them to help make Indian country count and be visible in the 2020 census. So we've encouraged them to post videos either on TikTok or Instagram talking about why they count using the hashtag #ICountChallenge, and then prizes will be given based on the most engaging, inspiring, and viral entrants. As you can see, we've extended the deadline to April 17th, and we got a few in already. We actually have a web page which I believe has gone live for everyone. If you want to check it out on our ICC website, that has just a few of the videos so far. But they're a great way, and I would encourage you to please go out and check that out. If you know any young folks out there, especially with that meme challenge that Jason mentioned as well, it's a great way to maybe express yourself artistically, or really just kind of find a fun way to distract yourself, especially in these times where we're kind of self-isolating and keeping to ourselves. So our call to action, NCI, obviously we've been working on this leading up to April 1st, and we had some grand plans, but they've had to change because of that. The time for action is now. The self-response rate has started, and it's going to be going for a long time now. So we really are encouraging folks to get out there, fill out that form, and then help others do the same. Reminding folks to fill out their form online, by phone or by mail, is a great way to do that. The census period is now lasting until April 14th, so there's plenty of time to continue raising awareness and empower folks to fill out their form at home. I would definitely encourage you to use the response map as a way to monitor your community's participation. You're not going to be able to drill down to each household or, a certain road and be able to tell which houses have done it. But on the community level, you can really see, or in the county level, I should say, you can really see, how you're doing compared to other states and other neighboring ones, and really create a competition out of it. And we, of course, encourage you to please check out the Census Bureau as well as Indian Country Council websites for more information and useful tools. And we will be constantly updating it with as much new information as we get. As soon as we get something, we're going to probably post it up there, and we'll try to get it out to folks either through our webinar series as well as through our, our email list and things like that. So with that, we've kind of come to the end here. I know we kind of went over our normal hour time frame. However, we really want to thank, obviously, our speakers, Jason Alliance Echo Hawk and Brian Barlow, for joining us. But we ask if anybody's got any questions right now, anything that you would like to mention here. Oh, I will also just, this is Sandra, she mentioned to us, it says that currently there's about a 2% increase per day on the response rates versus a 3 to 4% increase in the 2010 response rate in the 2010 census. So we're well behind where we are, which at least by comparison to 2010, they were well over 40% by this point, but right now we're a little over 30%. But the good thing is we do have extended time right now, and the thing is that this is going to be a long slog. We're going to be pushing people, now until probably August to be filling out that form, especially since that census time frame has extended. And just because things are on pause right now doesn't mean that, or that things might be a little, not want to say on pause, but like the field operations are on pause, doesn't mean that we can't stop filling out the census form in the meantime. So with that, folks, I am going to stop talking here. And, if everybody would like to obviously speak or would like to jump in with either questions, either over the phone or in the questions pane or in the chat box, please feel free to do that. So I'll stop talking and the floor is yours. I do see a previous question actually when we first started from Charlotte Little about, as the updated lead operations have been postponed, many do not have their 12-digit IDs. There are concerns about using directional addresses online. Those who have tried are not getting a confirmation message. Will reminder postcards have the census ID number? So the first two, I believe, have that census ID number, and I believe that, yes, as they continue to send out those reminders, they will have the ID on there. But again, you do not need that census ID in order to fill out your form online. And so, we are encouraging folks to go on there and just go ahead and fill it out, whether or not you have it, just because, worst case scenario, you'll be followed up by a census enumerator at some point, especially since things are on hold right now. We're encouraging folks to go ahead and do this now, because at the very least, you're going to get your information in, and then the Census Bureau will then know where you are, or at least have an idea of where you are, and there'll be less chance that you won't be counted or you'll be missed. All right, not seeing many questions at this point. Obviously, I see. Sandra, did you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so basically the census put out a two-pager with regard to your question about responding without an ID. I'm going to go ahead and copy the link and put it in our chat box just so people can take a look at it, because I know that's a question we've gotten too from folks about that. And so basically what they're just reminding folks is they're going to, even though you don't have that unique census ID that links specifically to your physical address, that you can still respond online or by phone if you don't have it. If you're online, as we expressed earlier in the webinar, there's a link underneath the button that you can click on, and then it'll prompt you and walk you through there. But the other opportunity is to call. They're just going to ask, specifically, they're going to ask you some questions in terms of address. So, for example, if you're responding without an ID, there's three options for entering that address. Just as a reminder, there's the street address, the rural route address, which is the rural route descriptor, rural route number, box ID with the city, state, and zip, or that other address or physical location that you can also explain in that box. So, for example, if you're calling in by phone, you're going to be prompted on the phone also to give a description. So either way, if you don't have that code, if you do it online or you do it over the phone, it's still going to provide you those same options. And then, of course, if you're still having difficulty at that point, definitely give Matt and I a call, and let's see what we can do to fix that. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll pull up this link, and we'll also make sure that we put this link on our webpage as another FAQ, or frequently asked questions for folks, so that you have access to the PDF file.
Thanks, Sandra. And I just went to the next slide just so you can see our email here for the how to reach out to us. It's census@ncai.org. And let me go ahead and I will put that on there for everybody as well. And she put and Sandra put that in the questions pane. Let's see if I can copy this and just make sure that everybody gets that in the chat. There we go. All right, so hopefully everyone has that. And as she mentioned, this is on the census website as well about responding without a census ID and their frequently asked questions. Does anybody else have any questions? We want to talk about what you're doing in your community. As we mentioned, a lot has changed and a lot of our plans have kind of gone out the window. So how do we respond? It sounds like, at least Brian has had a really good idea with the hotspots. Jaisha mentioning her kind of like coffee and chat, the meme, and, some of the online, I'm going to call it a dance party because it's got a DJ, but just basically as a way to get connected and be able to, again, still be thinking about census and how we can best get information out there. I know that some folks have used, a raffle to basically, entice people to, hey, fill out your census form. You could win a basket full of cleaning supplies, which, are in high demand today, or something like that. We actually at NCAI, we made our own video with our staff just internally and sent it around to our team just to make sure that they filled out their census form as well. It was, as I say, it was my 15 minutes of fame with that one, but it was, another way to do things is, maybe just coming together collaboratively to, make a short, quick video. Again, that kind of goes with the Native Youth Challenge where, they're doing quick videos and things like that. But that's a great, just trying to think outside the box, thinking of ways to really entice your community to, try to think about, with everything going on, I know it's really easy to say, hey, the census is not important right now, our health is important. But I think that just remind folks that the census is going to be determining the next 10 years of funding. And, with all the talk about, hey, there's not enough masks, or there's not enough healthcare workers, or there's not enough beds, census information does affect those, these decisions in terms of how many beds, how how much equipment and things like that are going to get determined in locations across the country. So I just remind folks that, hey, the census is important because, God forbid there's another outbreak like this, funding levels will have been determined by the information that we do today. So I definitely encourage folks to do that. I can see we're starting to lose a few folks, and of course, like I said, we are well over our hour time frame here. Any other questions, comments? Again, please, if you want to tell us about what you guys are doing in your community, something that might have been different, like you were planning to hold an event, but now you're doing something different, please let us know. We want to share that as far and wide, especially just to help us think of other ways. As I said, the hotspots thing was one way that I really hadn't given much thought of, but now I'm definitely want to look into as well. All right. Well, seeing none, and as I mentioned, we kind of went over our screen here a little, or our time frame by another 15 minutes. I think I'll just go ahead and finish up. I want to first again thank Jaisha Lyons Echohawk and Brian Barlow for joining us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to join us and tell us about your efforts in Oklahoma and what you guys are doing, especially in the wake of everything with the pandemic and the outbreak and the social distancing. Thank you, Sandra, of course, for always joining me and being my right hand. And just to thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us, ask questions. Feel free to continue to reach out to us. I'm sure you may already know me and Sandra's emails, but also feel free to send it to our census@ncai.org email. You can also check out our website, IndianCountryCounts.org, which has the most recent information, and you can also go to NCAI.org for more information on COVID-19 and how it's affecting Indian country and how we're responding to it. And then also go to our Twitter page, which is @NCAI1944 to, again, get the latest and greatest on that as well. Well, thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your day. Please, again, stay safe, wash your hands, wear masks, wear gloves if you have to go out, and just, don't forget about the census. So again, thank you guys so much and have a great day.